Welcome. I am Mark Allen, your host of That Word Chat. Mary Norris, I first met a few years ago at an ACES conference. Actually, I met her on Twitter, like I've met most of you probably, a few years ago, and we were able to bring her to the ACES conference, and she did this wonderful talk. She had her first book was Between You and Me, Confessions of a Comic Queen, about her life at the New Yorker as a proofreader for, must have been, I think about 25, 30 years. So she's seen a lot at the New Yorker and can speak to the weird style of the New Yorker. We're going to go straight now to Mary's apartment in New York, where she is waiting for us patiently. She's not really in the green room. I fibbed about that. We don't have a green room. She's quarantining at home. So without further ado, and you can do this for the applause thing if you like, since you're muted. Everybody here is Mary Norris.
How's that?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Now I can hear you and see you.
Excellent.
It's bright there.
I'm seeing some major sun here.
Yeah.
Can you see me if I move back here? Not so much.
There it is. That's very nice. Yeah. Yeah, I kept
Yes.
getting a different speaker view up for some reason.
I can see
fine.
you. I'm in my kitchen preparing some.
Whoops. Oh no, hang on. Wait.
Is Mary baking for us?
I think so, but I just muted her. Unmute. I'm so sorry. I did mute all, Mary, and I muted you as well.
Muted me.
And then I couldn't find you. So what do you do? Do we interrupt your?
So as you can see, on this table I have all of the things for a little pasta puttanesca. See? There. These are my sun-dried tomatoes.
I know. I'm sorry. I know we talked about doing a cooking segment, but I thought we would do that like later in the show.
Oh, I thought this was a whole cooking show.
No. It's a
well,
word.
Never mind then.
Word chat.
I'll make this for myself later. But surely I can convince you to have some ouzo?
Oh yeah, sure.
Perhaps a cocktail?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's cocktail hour.
Good. This gets me out of the sun, which was
good.
quite glaring.
And
now I get to show you my ouzo ritual.
You have a ritual.
Okay.
So I don't know. Did I mention that Mary is? I mentioned Mary's first book, but I don't know if I mentioned Greek to Me, which is Mary's latest book. This is the official launch of the paperback tour, right?
That's right. And we're going to toast it with some ouzo. Some people think they don't like ouzo, but maybe they've just had cheap ouzo. Ouzo number 12 is very good. You pour a little in a glass, add some ice, like a lot of ice. You top it off with just a little tiny bit, well, to taste, of course, of water.
Okay.
Swizzle it around. I have a nice pencil here we'll use. And offer a libation. That's to Hermes, who I think is the god of communications and whom we need right now, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, yamas to our health.
Yamas? Cheers.
Ooh, that's good. I also have, sorry, but whenever you have ouzo, you're supposed to have a few snacks. So I have the traditional olives here and some feta cheese cut into cubes. See?
I can smell it.
So I'm all set. I hope you're well provisioned wherever you are.
Well, I made myself some dark ouzo before I came on. Yeah. So I was going to host you at my house for ouzo, and what do we call the things you eat with ouzo?
Oh, those are mezedakia, little tidbits.
Oh, is that the translation?
Tidbits, yes.
Tidbits. All right. So Mary was going to come to town
Oh.
to kick off the paperback is out in a week or April 14th, something like
April 14th, right? I was going to be in Cleveland at the Cuyahoga Public Library, the South Euclid branch. And of course, like everyone else, they had to cancel.
that. Hmm.
And it made me very sad because it was the first time I was ever invited to Cleveland by such an auspicious and wonderful host as the public library. And you know how a prophet has no honor in her hometown? Well, they'd never invited me before. So I
No,
was very honored, and now we've had to postpone, cancel. Maybe there'll be a cyber event at some point.
yeah, and maybe they'll have you back. Maybe this will just maybe the disappointment will grow their appreciation for a favorite daughter of Cleveland to come back, and they'll do the whole keys to the city and things like that. Mary Norris, perhaps.
And they'll probably remind everyone that I am a second cousin of Dennis Kucinich, the former boy mayor of Cleveland.
Former boy mayor. Interesting. Second cousin. Okay. That probably doesn't really afford you any privilege.
No, no. My father, who was a city fireman, in his innocence donated money to the campaign of Dennis Kucinich back in the early 70s, I think.
Uh-huh.
And he thought that he could get a promotion, but Dennis cut him. Just cut him.
That didn't work. Huh. So what have you been doing? I mean, you're obviously not doing any promotion stuff. You can't get out to do anything. Is anything scheduled? Still possibility of doing?
Yeah. Well, I had a lecture scheduled the 1st of April, which was probably not a good idea, at Hofstra University. And that was the first thing to cancel, I believe. And also one in Michigan, at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. I was supposed to deliver this Gerald F. Else lecture, which is a huge honor, and it's usually reserved for classicists. And I assume they knew who I was when they invited me. I had my stand-up act all worked out, but that has been postponed. The Hofstra speech has been postponed till October. And other things, I was supposed to appear at the 92nd Street Y here in New York last week, and they had to cancel that, but we are doing an online series with Greek to Me as the textbook. So I'm excited about that. It'll begin, I think it's April 23rd, Shakespeare's birthday.
I'm sorry, it's a textbook? You're doing like a class on your book?
A 3-week class about Greek, yes.
About Greek?
Yes.
Interesting, the Greek language, yeah.
Kind of a superficial introduction to Greek as in the alphabet and a few words in modern Greek, and then a little bit about mythology, and then things about travel. The idea is to give people a virtual trip now that they can't actually go anyplace.
Oh yeah, and your book was a virtual trip. It was, so much of it was travelogue. Part of it was, there was the word element. We know you as the comic queen as a fellow copy editor, and your first book was a lot of memoir too, and this was a lot of about. So why don't you tell us about the book a little bit, those who haven't read it?
Well, it's a bit of a hybrid. It started out because when I wrote the book about Greek grammar, when I wrote the book about English, I took a trip to Greece, which I shouldn't have. I should have stayed home and worked on the book. But while I was in Greece, I was trying to make up for it by writing a little bit every day about Greek, thinking that I could work the Greek into the English language book. And it all got cut except for a few words here and there. But when it was time to get a topic for another book, my editor said, well, you want to write about Greek? He had noticed that I already wanted to write about Greek. So that's how it happened. I got to write a whole book about Greek. And I had 2 boxes in my closet. One was labeled Modern Greek, and the other was labeled Greek Drama. So I opened these boxes, and I had saved every note I ever took in a Greek class. My big Greek period was back in the 80s. And I sorted through these things and found a few travel pieces I'd wrote back then that were never published, and a long piece on Cyprus. And I was really excited at the idea that now I was going to be able to find a place to publish all this work.
Mhm.
And it took a lot of extra work. It took a lot more work to shape it into chapters of the book, but it worked out.
Yeah, right. So what's your next book?
I can't tell you that. And anyway, it seems now that any ideas I had before our new coronavirus, everything seems a little irrelevant now. The way that things seemed irrelevant after 9/11, just, why does that matter anymore? So we'll
Right.
see. It's a whole new ball game.
Right. Well, I mean, I think reading it, and I don't know how many people have read the book, but it gives you, it transports you to different places. It's not all set in Greece. They're your travels. It's set in New York City. You studied Greek in Manhattan and performed in Greek in a play or two. That's in the book.
Yes, I was still working at the New Yorker then, and people love this. I got the New Yorker to pay for me to take ancient Greek at Columbia. They didn't want to at first because it was rather expensive, but I persuaded them that a knowledge of Greek was helpful to a copy editor, which it certainly is. A knowledge of
Sure.
any language is helpful to a
Mhm.
copy editor. But I first studied modern Greek in order to travel in Greece, and it was while I was there looking at the Aegean that I fell in love with this blue in the Aegean, and I decided I would try to learn ancient Greek in order to read everything that Greeks who had gone before me on this sea had read. So when I got back, I switched to ancient Greek. It was the first time I ever studied a dead language, so I missed all of those things like skits and dialogues. And that's when I saw on campus a sign for auditions for Euripides Electra. And I thought, well, that's the way to get your ancient Greek conversation class. So I tried out for that. They were desperate,
This was
and
in
I
Greece.
got a
In
part
Greek.
in the chorus.
Yeah, this was in Greek, right?
Yes, ancient Greek.
Yeah.
It's an old tradition in schools, in colleges. They did it at Cambridge. They did it at Harvard. They certainly did it at Bryn Mawr, perform a play in the ancient Greek.
Uh-huh. And what's the audience like for that? Sparse or
Well, no.
no?
Nerdy, very nerdy.
Sure.
Lots of, I used to go to them before. You don't expect to understand a lot. Now they've gotten sophisticated and they project the super titles, but we relied on self-expression completely.
Right. So do people laugh at the right time?
They sometimes laugh at the wrong time,
Yeah.
actually. I got 2 laughs. I got plucked out of the chorus of Electra and given the lead in the Trojan Women. I played Hecuba the next year. And I got 1 laugh during a speech to Helen. Somebody actually understood me when I said in ancient Greek to Helen, who among Spartans heard you scream? Because she said she was abducted and didn't go willingly with Paris. So that got a laugh. And then at the end, when poor little Astyanax, the son of Hector, has been thrown off the walls of Troy and is carried in and laid at the feet of Hecuba, while I was doing there's a word for it, grieving over him, the little boy crossed his feet. And that got a laugh, you can bet.
That wasn't your laugh. That was the boy ad-libbing then.
Yes. He had a non-speaking role and was determined to get some attention, apparently.
Yeah. I read the book. This is, you can see that it's like undamaged from my reading because I did the audio book, which was terrific because I had your voice with me telling the story the whole way. So on airplanes and in the car, and and it really is in some ways a travel book. So I associate it with those travel things. But
Oh,
let
that's
me
nice.
let me take a minute to tell you this what it did for me was my dad was um, a lover of Greece, and he did several Swans cruises back in the
Oh,
70s, 60s. Um, so reading this kind of there's so much romance in Greece, and both modern and ancient, I think, and that um, sort of had helped me sort of, you know, helped me remember him, brought me closer to him, and understanding what motivated him about Greece. So let me ask you this: are there two Greeces? Is there the modern and the ancient, or do you see sort of a common thread between the two?
well, there are definitely two. There are more than two versions of Greece. And my heart has actually always been with the modern Greeks, the people who are
Right.
alive now. Their language is very beautiful. I'm not fluent in it. I can work it up when I go there and say a few things.
Mhm.
And I originally went there, not because of ancient Greece. I had read the Iliad and the Odyssey in translation, but I went for the beaches. I can't lie. And read classical. What did I read? Mary Renault on the beach and on the
Oh yeah.
boats, I think. So it was maybe superficial, but there's nothing like going to a Greek village and finding a taverna outside at the port and having fresh fish. Um, I like Athens. I'm not one of those people who just sets down in Athens and then gets out the first chance that I can in order to go to one of the islands. I like Athens. I like staying there. Right now, that new Acropolis Museum is a marvel. Of course,
Right.
you can't go right now, but
Right. I was going to ask why not, for getting the obvious reason.
and of course, there are all the ruins, and they open doors to the ancient world. But the thing that I find is that there's something still there about those ancient gods. Helios, the sun god. That's still, the sun is still very much there in Greece. And when anything happens, you can blame a god for it. If you get lost on the road driving, you can say Hermes is messing with me.
So you had mentioned you talked about the wine dark sea, and you talk in your book about the blue, which is sort of I think we associate any image of Greece and the islands, the white buildings and the blue water and the blue
Yeah,
sky. And
yeah, that
um,
is the image everyone knows of Greece is blue and white. Yes,
yeah,
like the flag.
like the flag, of course. Yeah. And you said you had something to read for us
Oh, yes, I
from your
thought,
book. If you
just going to reach around you.
probably, oh, sure.
Excuse me.
That's all right. I'll back up.
Um, one of the things that I got to write about was the color of Athena's eyes.
Ah,
And that led me to a whole, well, quite a lot on the color blue. And I'm not going to read it all, but I'll give a little sample of it from the book, okay?
mhm.
This is from the chapter on words. It's called Dead or Alive. And that follows the chapter on Athena. A is for Athena. The word that Homer relies on for Athena is glaphkopis, with that op from optic of the eye, and glaphkos, carrying a range of meanings, one of them traditionally gray. He also uses glaphkos to describe the sea. I picture gray-green, but like wine dark, glaphkos, glaphkopis, may refer to a quality instead of a color. In this case, it would mean not the sea's profound depths, but its glittering surface. Gray-eyed is the traditional translation of Glaufkopis. The various spellings, American spells it Gray and Brits spell it Grey, shouldn't make any difference, but they actually do. I knew a copy editor at the New Yorker who refused to change Grey to Gray in a poem because he insisted there was a difference. He was also a poet. Gray with the EY suggests the spelling of I, EYE. Perhaps giving it more luster? The original Loeb translation, those Loeb dual language books, Flashing-Eyed Athena, comes with a footnote acknowledging the translation gray-eyed, but adding, if color is meant, it is almost certainly blue. We think of Greeks as having olive complexions and dark eyes like Latinos, but some of the ancestors of the ancient Hellenes originally came from the north. And even today, you often meet Greeks who have startling pale blue eyes, as if lit from within by the Mediterranean. There are surely as many shades of blue as there are of gray: cornflower, sapphire, royal, navy, aquamarine, cobalt, cerulean, indigo, wedgwood, powder, metallic, cendre. There is delft blue, the blue of chicory, the heavenly blue of the morning glory, hyacinth blue, hydrangea blue, robin's egg blue, the ravishing blue of the Tasmanian superb fairy wren. There's Alice blue, swimming pool blue, and gas jet blue, and the dusty blue of blueberries. And don't forget forget-me-not blue, the blue of Windex, the primary blue of Marge Simpson's hair. There is the memorable blue of my father's eyes, the true blue of my younger brother's eyes, tearing up on a morning of Acqua Alta in Venice. My older brother has clear blue eyes with more gray in them. People sometimes insist that I have blue eyes, but it isn't so. My eyes, like my mother's, are gray with a yellow ring around them, a yellow ring around the pupil that shades into green depending on the light. When I'm angry or when I've been crying my eyes are red rimmed, the eyes are indisputably green. I would gladly step up to the epithet of Athena, but the form for a driver's license does not have a box to check for the eye color glaucus. I'm going to share with you a souvenir from a recent trip I took to Morocco. This was one of the only things I bought in Marrakesh. It's a chunk of indigo, indigo blue. I don't know. I looked it up, and indigo is not a rock. I thought it was a rock, but it's a plant. And of course, it's used as a dye. And when I Googled around a little, what I found out was that Indigo is the name of an Indian travel agency, Cheap Flights, Indigo. And it also is used for dyeing hair. And in the pandemic, I understand that don't have this problem because I got lazy and stopped coloring my eyes years ago. But perhaps somebody might resort to indigo to do a home job, There you go.
Interesting.
It also stains your fingers blue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I won't touch it. Oh, there you go. Blue hair, we'll call you blue-haired Mary.
All right, a blue hair.
That will be your, yes.
Instead of flashing eye, no thanks.
Gray eyes. So I have more questions for you, but we've been doing this for nearly half an hour, and I promised everybody a chance to ask questions. And so if you have any questions, if there were any, I haven't seen them. If you send a message directly to me, say you want to ask about whatever, I can ask you then to unmute. And I don't want to say everybody just unmute now and everyone start talking, but if you have a question, let me know and we'll get Mary to answer. So you were in Spain, is that right, recently? Before?
I recently went to Spain. My books are basically untranslatable, but Spain, La Rus Español, did a translation of Greek to me, they couldn't call it Greek to me because in Spanish they say Chinese to me when they don't understand
Oh.
something. So they called it Mi Gran Odisea Greja, my big fat Greek travels, my big fat Greek odyssey is how
Really?
and I've been traveling so much that I thought it would be fun to go someplace just for fun, just to see if I still like to travel. So I went with a friend to Morocco, but then I told the Spanish publishers that I would be around. I mean, Marrakesh is not that far. Morocco is just across the Mediterranean, or the Atlantic, rather, I guess. Anyway, they said, well, come and we'll set something up. And so I stopped in Barcelona for a few days on my way home from Morocco. And this was in February. I got home on February 27th, and it was just in time. I mean, I had barely registered that I would be affected. It wasn't a pandemic yet, right? I was just noticing, oh, there's 2 free seats next to me on this plane. How nice.
Yeah.
You know, it hadn't occurred to me the reason that there were those free seats.
Yeah. We had the same experience. We went to AWP, the American Writers and Writing Programs Conference, my wife and I, in San Antonio, which was wonderful. Very little social distancing along the water, along the Riverwalk in San Antonio. But and when we went there, the flight was fairly full. The flight coming back was half full.
Yeah.
And of course, I suppose flying to Columbus is less interesting at that time of year than flying to San Antonio. But
They have flights to Columbus?
oh,
Sorry. But and I'm also sorry about the meeting of the copy editors in Salt Lake City. It's so sad that had to be canceled.
yeah.
But you're going to be doing things online, right?
We are talking about the possibilities of what we can do. I think we'll, I don't know if we'll do one big thing or we'll do some little things, but we're certainly planning something, some more opportunities for people to get together and talk, because this is, this is great. We all know as copy editors, we're used to isolation, but it's nice to have that moment of connection.
Well, that's exactly what was always so fun about the conferences, is that whenever I would overhear somebody in the lobby of the hotel where the ACES conference was, they were always saying something that I thought was me thinking aloud, would you put a hyphen in somersault or whatever?
Right. So let me we've got a few questions from the audience, so let me start getting some of those. Mackenzie Patel, if you just unmute your microphone, I believe you can do it yourself, and then just ask away.
Hi, Mary. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hi, I'm a big fan. I read both of your books and I really love them. And my question for you is, have you studied Latin at all, or ancient Roman history, and how do you think that compares to ancient Greece?
Well, Mackenzie, I see you have disappeared yourself. So we're now looking at, or at least I am looking at, a blank screen. No, I tell the story in the very beginning of the Greek book of how my father refused to let me study Latin when I was a girl. So, oh, hi, there you are.
Hi.
Yeah, so it was, my life would have been completely different if my father had allowed me to study Latin. I went to a Catholic school and the nuns offered this class. I was in about 6th grade on Saturdays, and he wouldn't let me do it. And I've spent many years trying to figure out why, but also trying to please him. By the time I could decide to take Latin on my own, I had it construed that my father would be pleased if I'd never studied Latin, so I skipped it. And I tried to take it again in college, and my linguistics professor talked me out of it. He said it would just teach me about English. And I didn't have the wits to say, well, what's wrong with that? That would have been interesting too. So no, what I have done is I've studied Italian. And the way that modern Greek led me into ancient Greek, I was hoping that Italian would lead me into Latin.
I see.
And it may yet, but there are so many things I want to study, being in Morocco made me want to take a look at Arabic.
That'd be fascinating.
Yeah, they write backwards,
Wow.
and all of their letters look to me like punctuation marks. They're very subtle. So,
That could be your next book.
and I don't even know how they do it. I would have to, I think, learn to do it right with my left hand. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. I do still want to study Latin. It's still an ambition of mine.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mary, where are you located?
I am sitting in a very nice apartment. I would show you the windows, but they're dirty and the sun is streaking in.
Okay.
I have south and west exposure and lots of windows on the corner of Park Avenue South and 22nd Street. I look out over a church roof, and I'm on the 6th floor. If I open all the windows, I can pretend I'm outside, and that helps.
Yeah.
In isolation. And as you say, we're writers, we're editors, we're used to being home alone. So I can still go out for groceries and out for a walk. And I should wear a mask. I have a couple of masks. They're not the right kind. They're the kind to cover your nose when you are a carpenter. It's a sawdust mask, basically.
Right. Do you are you washing your hands regularly?
I wash my hands constantly.
And what do you sing a song while you do it?
Yeah. Well, do I sing a song? I had hoped that because we were doing a talk show, I would finally fulfill my ambition of being a torch singer.
Oh yeah, we do have the
I'll just give you a quick
segment. Yeah.
The Edie Gourmet. If it takes forever, I will wait for you for 1,000 summers. I will wait for you. And luckily for you, that's all the words I know.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mary Norris, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, too bad the applause is muted.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I did. We do that.
Thank you for indulging.
Have you met my friend Ellen Joven, the grammar table?
Ellen and I are buddies, yes.
Oh, good. Because she had a question for you, so I'll let her give her question.
Okay. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Ellen. Oh, I see you're on the subway.
It's my fantasy destination right now because it feels like the very worst place to go. I was wondering if you had accumulated any thoughts on being a writer in a pandemic, because I'm assuming this is your first experience of that.
Yes. Well, I have, I told you I was studying Italian, and I've been doing this for years. I never do homework, but I show up and it's sort of filtered in. But because our Italian class cannot meet right now in person, we've gone online and we're reading the Decameron together. And this was, this is about 10 people, 7 women and 3 men who hole up outside Florence during the plague and tell stories. For 10 days, each one tells a story, so there's 100 stories. And that struck me that we should be entertaining each other with stories now as much as we can. And I know that this is all really serious and deadly. And I personally, you haven't seen my shirt that I'm wearing, huh? I'm personally terrified because I have a little bit of asthma. And so, if I need a ventilator, I'm going to just stay home instead and sweat it out. Here's my shirt.
Not dead. This is a Monty Python reference?
That's right. It's a Monty Python reference. I'm not dead yet. Anyway, I think we should all indulge in as many comedies and funny books and escapist things as we can for as long as we can.
Good, wise words. And I think we're not going to have time to do the cooking segment. So you can leave the apron off.
Hey, at least I got to sing.
That's fine. Yeah, we have time for that. We have, I think we have, one more question from Patty Boyd. So Patty Boyd's, and I hope I don't say this wrong, her daughter-in-law, I believe, is Turkish, from Turkey. And I know that, I don't know, is there a continuing rift between Turkey and Greece among the people in Greece that you met? Is that sort of a thing?
Absolutely. Yes, that is, especially, Cyprus is one of the
Sure.
centers of that, a crucible.
Mhm.
And yeah, the Greeks do not trust the Turks, and the Turks do not trust the Greeks.
Right.
Those Dodecanese islands that are just off the Turkish coast are, it always feels like they're imperiled. They look, certainly they look to Turkey like they should belong to Turkey. They're so far. But Greece was, was all about, it was ships. And so their empire, Greece was, Magna Graecia was, took, a lot of the coast of Asia Minor and also reached all the way to Sicily in the west. So the Greeks were used to being able to go all those places. And I once tried to tell a Greek that I understood about the enmity between Greece and Turkey because of Ireland, and because of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland.
Mhm.
And he said, no, you don't understand a thing. This is much older than that. And of course, he's right.
Trojan War.
Yeah, and it does seem insoluble. Nobody will ever give an inch.
Well, well, on that note, let's ask Patty to ask her question.
Well, hi, Mary. It was funny when you had the ouzo. I couldn't think of the word even. Because it says, I was like, is she going to add water to it? So that in Turkey, it's raka, same
Raki,
thing.
Yeah.
And
Oh, but don't tell them it's the same thing.
Well, I know they get offended when we go, oh, it's ouzo. Same with, all of these foods that to my taste buds taste the same. And then you talked about the little platters, and what was the word you used for that?
Mezerakia.
Okay, and so we call it mitse. So,
Right.
whatever. But anyway, I was just curious, what's your favorite dish in Greece when did you have a favorite?
Well, I love tzatziki, which is Turkish.
I know. Yes. Well, my son's father-in-law, he's like the Greek in my big fat Greek wedding. Everything's like, television, it was started in Turkey. Yogurt, they're very proud of. That's Turkish. But
Yogurt is Turkish, yes, yes. Yeah. I love tiropita. I like cheese pies.
Ooh.
And I like the salad, the Greek country salad.
What's that like? Is it just Greek?
It's a lot of tomatoes, a lot of sliced cucumbers, and the koriatiki salata. It just means country salad. It's whatever you have around in the garden that is good to eat. So usually it's lots of tomatoes, cucumbers, olives, feta cheese, maybe capers, and anything else that you have around. Some green pepper. Some people like to put anchovy in it.
Okay. Yeah, it is interesting. It seems like the language, like I don't get a sense of a lot of Greek words in Turkish. So, but do you know if are you familiar? Have you heard of any words that are like of Turkish origin in Greek?
Oh yeah, lots of words.
Okay.
Because the Turks dominated Greece for centuries, the Ottoman Turks, and there was and of course, Turkish words found their way into Greek, and it's a long, long history of the Greek language. But one of the things that happened after the War of Independence, when Greece got its freedom, was that they tried to clean up the language. There is a version of modern Greek called katharevousa, which means puristic. And the idea was to clear out all the Turkish words and just use words that had pure classical roots. And they did that. It was the bureaucratic language, it was the newspaper language, but people didn't speak it. The Greek that people speak is called demotiki, demotic. And it was not until I think the 1970s that katharevousa no longer was the official language of Greece, that they made Demotic Greek the official language.
Anyway, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, thank
so
you.
the discussion in the group chat I see is all about food. So I think that people must, which for obvious
I'll just
reasons.
have an olive.
Yeah, there you go. You got.
Always provide
I
your
didn't,
guests with a little pit bowl, by the way.
I didn't bring any snacks with me, so I always have to go down and get something. But Mary, you grew up in Cleveland, and when did you left for college? Is that correct?
That's right. Some people, when they go away to college, they go to Paris or London. I went to New Brunswick, New Jersey, to Rutgers.
Yeah,
But it was near New York and it was east, and I thought that was the sophisticated place to be.
sure.
And then after that, I went back home for a year, and then I went to Vermont, to the University of Vermont in Burlington for 2 years to get a master's in English, and it was from there that I moved to New York.
And so I don't know if you've met Elizabeth DeAndro, but
I sure have. Hi, Elizabeth.
you went to college in Ohio. She has a Ohio connection.
Yes, I went to Oberlin.
Ah.
She had
I'm always amazed at how many people went to Oberlin. It's in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
But more importantly, Mary and I bonded, among other things, over the fact that I went to Greece in the 80s. As far as I know, we didn't meet then, but it was definitely a formative experience. I took a year off of Oberlin and traveled in Europe. I was going to start in Greece and after 2 weeks go to Italy and keep on heading up. And it took me about 2 months to get out of Greece. I barely had time to see anything else. So my question, you've got me all fired up again, Mary, and this happened when I read your book last year as well, to be thinking and reading some more things in that vein. And since you have had the obnoxious fact of only having written 2 books, both of which I've now read, I wonder if there are any other books, what books related to Greece or antiquity or travel. Do you have anything to recommend if someone were in that vein and, say, unable to leave their house for some reason?
Well, you couldn't go wrong by reading Homer. There are a lot of translations, of course. The new,
but suppose a person read Homer in the 80s and is now, or maybe there's a new translation I should look at.
There is a new translation. Emily.
Oh yeah, Emily Wilson's.
Emily Wilson, right?
Is it Wilson? Yeah.
And there's also Daniel Mendelssohn's book, An Odyssey, in which he goes on a cruise with his father. So that's very affecting. I have heaps of books, and of course I can't see them from here. But there, of course, there's the Madeline Miller book, Circe, and her Song of Achilles. So there are those historical fantasy kind of novels, and those are good to lose yourself in. One book that I loved was a book by James Merrill called A Different Person. And he's the poet. And when he was a young man, he got to go on a trip with Kimon Fryer, who was a translator from modern Greek. He got to go to Greece and stay with Kimon Fryer on an island. And it describes his whole life as a gay man in Athens back in the 50s and 60s. And that book, I have not read a lot of James Merrill's poetry, but I love this memoir called A Different Person. And when poets write prose, it's always just exquisite, or exquisite, as I prefer to say.
Oh, thank you. I've been taking notes. Thanks.
Okay, I should have more for you. I had a whole list of things because there is a bit of a renaissance, I think, in interest in Greek. Both, there's a scholarly book about a woman named Eva Palmer Sikelianos. It's called A Life in Ruins. And the author of that is Artemis Leontis. And it's fascinating. This woman who grew up in Maine and went to school at Bryn Mawr. She traveled in Europe. She met the poet Sikelianos and married him. And he had a sister who was a relative of, who's the woman with the scarves, the dancer? The,
Dancer with the scarves. We're all wearing
Not
scarves.
Deborah Burks.
no, anyway, it was a very creative, hot climate. And she tried to live a life as an ancient Greek. She couldn't find the right kind of fabric to make a tunic that draped properly. So she became a weaver and made her own fabric.
Ah,
The ancient Greeks did. Fascinating book.
So Ellen sent me a private message that says I guess there's this discussion going on. I don't know if you've seen the discussion, people chatting while this is going on, but they've come up with your next book.
Oh, what is it? What is it? I want it.
The title is The Mary Norris Cookbook for Writers, Editors, and Other Hungry Word Nerds.
Oh, I like that. I
She's
like
very
that.
focused on food today. And she does point out it would include a cocktail and drink section, but that goes without saying. Do you have time? We've lost a few people. We're over an hour. Do you have time for just a couple more questions? Or are we keeping you from
Me?
whatever?
Keeping me?
Yeah.
No, I have another Zoom date at 6 o'clock, but that leaves me plenty of time.
Oh, okay. All right. Is that a cocktail experience?
Probably.
Okay.
I just learned how to make a Sazerac, which is interesting.
Oh.
That involves absinthe, just a
Yes,
little
it does.
whiff of absinthe.
Yes, you actually coat the glass with it. You don't actually.
Is that what you
no
do?
actual substance. Yeah. We can talk Sazerac later. See there, Deanna had a question. If Deanna's still with us, Deanna Burgart.
Here I am.
Oh, right here. Oh, there she is.
Oh, I love your virtual background.
Thank you. Oh, I guess a microphone might help. Yes.
Yeah.
So I had, let's for a moment pretend that the world is something approaching normal again this fall. And I know that there are variations of this where that may not sadly be possible. However, if the world approaches normal again, I'll be living in the UK at some point, and it's been our plan to, do the continent right while we're there, because how often do you get this opportunity? Greece has been on my list. So, if I only had one opportunity to go to Greece and spend a couple of weeks and really knock around, other than the obvious, you have to go to Athens. Where is the most Greek Greece that somebody could see? What's the quintessential Greece experience that you'd recommend?
Well, a lot of people, I think, would go to an island. And, all of the, quintessential Greek, it's hard because like Corfu is very Greek, but it also has a lot of Venetian influence. And those islands on Kefalonia would be a beautiful place to go. That's in the Ionian Sea to the west of mainland Greece. And that's where Greeks go on vacation. So that's a good choice. The Kyklades, what we would pronounce Cyclades, but it's Kyklades, is a beautiful group of islands with a lot of variety. One of them, Paros, has a lot of expats from Britain in it. Patmos.
Expats.
Yes. So it's Greek, and the Greeks there are very proud of being Greek, but there are also a lot of non-Greeks there. Where you could go, one of the places that I always like best, the last place I've been, and you don't have to go to an island to get to experience the sea. You can go to any place in the Peloponnese along the coast and have beautiful, beautiful scenery. So like Pylos on the farthest west peninsula of the Peloponnese, or the Mani, which is the central one. And there's a place there, I have not been to Stupia. I don't even remember the name of it, but it's just south of Kardamili, which is where Patrick Lee Fermer built his house. So there are still wild places there where they have not had a lot of tourists yet. Otherwise, northern Greece probably is not as much traveled by tourists as parts of the Peloponnese and the islands. But I'm sure that you can find, let's see now, Sifnos is the next place I want to go because it's not been overrun by tourists. And instead of tourism, their industries are farming and fishing. So that would be a possibility.
Lovely. I have a long list now.
Oh, good, because I could keep going.
So I got a cryptic email from Judy Heidel, and I wasn't sure, just a question, and so but it didn't have a question. Did I miss?
Yeah, I didn't. Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. I was a student of Latin and Greek for 2,000 million years. I studied for my PhD at the University of Washington and ended up ABD, unfortunately, but studied Greek and Latin forever.
You did all the real work.
I did all of it, really, yeah. And I have ironically taken some of this time to revisit. It's been since the late 90s since I taught some high school after that, but it's been a long time since I've been involved. So I've been rereading some of my Latin and Greek and trying to get back involved in it during this enforced break. So I was wondering, when you did study ancient Greek, was there anything, any literature that you particularly enjoyed, or did you get as far as reading it? Is there anything that you especially liked?
Well, I loved everything I read in ancient Greek. It is all so, there's a reason they're called classics. They're just good. Herodotus is really fun.
Yeah.
And the person I just returned to, the writer I just returned to, was Thucydides on the play.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In translation, I admit, he's a little bit difficult. The sentences are very fancy, but very beautiful. Also, you could do worse than to read Plato. You could read the Apology of Socrates, which I read and I loved, and also the Symposium. Anything of featuring Socrates, I would think would be a pleasure right now. What else? The playwrights, of course, and Homer. But I would say the historians might be especially interesting right now.
Yeah, I agree. Thucydides is very, very difficult Greek. And
yes.
I remember my professor saying that part of it was because it was, perhaps because it was the first time anybody was really writing history. And so just the language that he was trying to bring about, it was very hard to do even in Greek, and for us now to understand it.
Well,
but,
even to modern
Herodotus
Greek,
yeah.
Herodotus is so, but even to Greeks now, they can barely pronounce the word Thokididis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that too. So I think that's all the questions, and I think we've had 33 people stay with us for this whole thing, which is lovely and wonderful. And we really appreciate you being here and taking the time to spend with us and talk about these great topics. I'm going to put up a link to my local bookstore, so you can get, I assume you get the paperback now on Amazon or wherever you buy books. This is a local bookstore where Mary was supposed to give a talk on tax day, April 15th. I had planned to take you to our local Italian restaurant, Giuseppe's, which is where it has a storied past because Mignon Fogarty, Bill Walsh, and Corey Stamper have all sampled the food there. So when you do make it to town.
All right. I hope there will be a renewed invitation. I would love to come.
Absolutely. And this is the hardcover book, but you actually showed me earlier the soft cover, which is brighter.
Yeah.
I didn't know
yours has gold on it, so it glitters, and it kind of. This one is a little bit bolder and easier to see from a distance.
Yeah, it really should cost more than the.
But that's a beautiful one.
It costs less.
It's got mosaic. I still love the mosaic.
Yeah. All right, so next week we'll have another one if because I think it went well. And I'm not sure who the guest is, maybe somebody in this room. But we'll have another talk, and so sign up again. Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you all. If
Thanks,
it
Mary.
takes forever, I will wait for you for 1,000 summers. You can turn this off while I'm singing.
No, I didn't want to cut you off, but I also figured, all right. I'm
Dream
Thank you, Mark.
fulfilled.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.